So hey guys, I was looking at a video about the number one gigolo in Japan, and it was going okay. Saw bits and pieces of some of stuff, and then towards the end of it, it just blew my mind like wide open. I mean, it was kind of hidden there already in terms of how he described becoming this gigolo and the money that he would get and how he became successful and so on. But then the end of it just wiped my mind out, like seriously. So anyway, let me just start to describe this guy. So in the video, the guy pulls up to the host of the show. This is Asian Boss. This is a video on the Asian Boss channel, and basically he pulls up in this really expensive car, and he picks up the host, and the host is like, "So how much is this car?" Well, the car is $370,000 US, and he's like, "So how did you get the car?" Well, the person is like that, and he's like, "Well, I got it as a reward for doing a good job. Basically, somebody gave it to me because I wouldn't buy something like this myself." So they go back to the club and they start talking, and the host he's a host in Japan, meaning that there are clubs where women come to and they're entertained by men. So he's a male host, and it's not a strip club like in America, right? These are just slender guys who sit down and talk and have fun with the women that come in. And of course there are female hosts who do the same thing for men. Anyway, basically he's like the number one host. When the narrator asked him, like, "Are you the number one in Japan?" He's like, "No, not really. I'm in the number one of these clubs, this group of clubs." And he's like, "Well, there are websites and there are different places where you can see who earns the most as a host every month." And exactly 1 year ago, from the time that they were interviewing him, I was the number one host for that month. But there are lots of other hosts in Japan, he says. Anyway, so how did he get into this industry? Basically, his parents threw him out. After junior high school, he was trying to get into a high school, and he tried 3 times, and he couldn't get in. So they told him, "Hey, you better go try living on your own." So he did some construction work, he said, and then basically he was able to build like a cardboard house for himself in the park. And at that point he decided, okay, let me try to become a host. And the hosts have a certain quota that they have to meet every month. Otherwise they have to clean the club before and after the clients come in. And he was saying that for the longest time he would be doing that because he wasn't making enough money. And he said that as a host, so yeah, basically he was homeless, right? His parents threw him out of the house, and he had to go do construction work until he could build a cardboard house for himself in a park. But he decided to try hosting. So basically he was very, very poor. He didn't have any money because they were paying him illegally. They weren't paying him enough money to survive. So he would buy noodles for himself, like cheap $1 noodles, to try to survive, because he was spending all of his money on rent and on his phone. Anyway, he said that at a particular point he realized that there was no way that he could fake being successful and being this great guy. So he just told all his customers that he didn't have any money. He was not well to do. He didn't have anything at all. And he said as soon as he started doing that, basically things started looking more and more positive for him. So the idea is that customers, women who want company and they want to be entertained, they would come to the club, and basically they would spend money at the club buying bottles of alcohol, really expensive alcohol, or whatever. I don't know any other way that they're spending money at the club, for example. But yeah, that's how they would support him. And depending on how much money you bring in every month, if you meet your quota, then you're fine. If you don't, then you're not fine. And whatever alcohol it is that the women buy, like a bottle of champagne or a bottle of cognac or whatever it might be, you might not drink it because at the time when he was working at the club, he was underage. So he couldn't really drink, or he wasn't supposed to. They never really went into that. But the whole idea anyway is that you're sitting there entertaining, in fully clothed in the club, entertaining female guests that come in. And he says the junior people, like he would have been one, which is why I'm wondering if he was drinking illegally, they have to drink. So the person buys this amount of alcohol and they drink. So you'd say, well, why are these people buying alcohol? Well, you tell your customers that you need to make a certain quota, or you need to make a certain amount of money. And since you're there to entertain them, they will buy these bottles of alcohol, I presume, in order to help you make the quota that you need to meet every month, your minimum quota, and also to help you to just get by, I guess, if you want to be the number one best paid gigolo in Japan, and you know that you need $3,000 more to do that. You might suggest to your customers that, hey, could you buy some of this? Could you buy some of that? And the other lesser host would come around and drink that thing, and the club gets its money from what you paid for the bottle. So this is some of the stuff that was blowing my mind, because I would never have imagined that, number one, for example, that in Japan, people throw their kids out in the street to try to live on their own. I would never have imagined that it's legal to employ, underage people to come work at these bars, that you tell people, hey, you need to spend this amount of, well, you're not demanding of them, but you're suggesting, I need to meet my quota. And he's like, on the birthday of a host, the host is required to tell the customers, hey, it's my birthday, can you buy some of this alcohol for me? Well, just from the club, could you throw this money at the club for me, because I need it? And he said that some of the hosts, that's why they get depressed around their birthday, because they need to do it. It's part of their job, and they don't really want to do it. But he says that he's lucky that he doesn't really have to ask. Women would say to him, like, how much do you need? And they would buy that amount of stuff. Anyway, I don't want to go into the whole nitty-gritty of this video, but basically they were interviewing one of the customers, and they were asking her, well, how did you meet this guy? And she said, well, I was going around in Tokyo, and he came up to me and he asked me out, and I thought he was cool, so we went out, and then he asked me if I wanted to come to the club. And that's how they get women to come to the club. They go out like regular guys to meet women who think that they might be getting into a relationship with a particular person. Then, after they go out on a date, they tell the woman, hey, I'm a host, come to my club. And then the women come to the club in order to support them. And especially in his case, where he isn't making any real money in the beginning, and he needed, stuff like that. So it's kind of like, well, let me give this other part. Basically, when you meet this girl and you say, hey, come to my club, and she likes you, because that's what he said. At some point, he's like, people don't come and buy drinks if they think of you just as a friend. So basically, these hosts are out and about in Tokyo looking for women to basically make them think that they are in a relationship, sort of, with you, so you can get them to come to the club and spend money buying alcohol that they don't even drink, so that you can get paid from some of the money that they spend at the club. That was just what is this? This was just like, what is going on here? And then after that, what threw me for a curve is that he was saying that some of these girls, they're college girls, high school girls. Well, I guess I don't know if they want to go that far to high school girls, but college girls who might not have that much money. So what he's saying is some of these people, if they don't make that much money, they will go and get a second job, or they will become self-employed, or even look for a higher paying job in order to be able to come to the club every so often to support the host. This was just crazy to me to hear this. And it's somewhere there like a pimp, but kind of like a reverse pimp kind of thing. And actually some of the girls might actually become a host themselves in order to help the host. So you have people who, a lot of them, he was saying, they might find a legitimate means to come to the club and spend money on the host, or they might end up finding themselves in the same industry as the host or working at a brothel in order to come and give the host money or be entertained by the host. I was just like, what is this? And this is like, I don't know how many clubs. He said there are over 3,000 hosts in Japan, right? And he's in Tokyo, and this particular group that he's with has a number of clubs, I presume around Tokyo or around Japan even. And this is just straightforward. So then the interviewer asked him, is it required that you have sex with your customers? And he's like, well, most of the hosts might not do that because they look at it as work. But if it's not work, then they might do it because you're attracted to the person. So then, of course, my brain goes back to the beginning where he has this $370,000 car, and he's saying that he wouldn't buy it for himself. He was given the car as a reward because he worked hard. And I was like, okay, buddy, you must have worked really, really hard. And, you are clear about this, that if it is that one of the girls, he says, they asked him again, if somebody, goes crazy for you, they fall in love with you, and, they want you to be theirs. He's like, what do you do? It's like, well, I pretend not to understand. And he'll be like, we're friends, aren't we? But, not a minute later, he's like, yeah, everybody knows what's going on here. Nobody comes to a club and spends money buying stuff at the club if they just see you as a friend. So I guess he's doing some mental gymnastics in order not to make himself feel very bad. And wow. Japan is a crazy, crazy place. I've heard of people being hosts, even like foreigners being hosts in Japan. And I think this interview kind of brought some clarity to me, where I guess in Japan you don't want to call these escort services, and you might not want to call them, whatever, like brothels and whatever else. But clearly they are, and the Japanese, especially when you have stuff like hentai and whatever else, Japan is an interesting place, just a crazy interesting place. And at the end of it, it's kind of sad-ish, because they ask him, are you fulfilled? And he's like, well, I'm not really fulfilled yet. There's a lot of things that I want to do in life. I'm just trying to get to the point where I can go ahead and do those things. And maybe 2 or 3 minutes before, they show him, like, I guess somebody had bought a bottle, and he was saying, well, I just wanted to thank my princess, because that's what they call the customers, princess, for always being so supportive of me, and da 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 da. And he makes the big speech, and the cameras are still on him, and he claps a couple of times, and then he, stops talking, and his face just drops down to like the most depressed person in the place kind of face. And I was like, wow, but he's come very far from where he started out, being kicked out of the house from his parents. And he has $110,000 watch that he showed the interviewer. He has a $370,000 car. And I'm sure he probably doesn't have to eat noodles anymore, or do any construction work, or clean the club anymore like he did for the longest time, living off of $18 a day when he couldn't get his quota. So he's come far. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other people, I'm sure, that didn't make it, and that's kind of heavy. All right, see ya.